Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday and welcome to August. The year is just flying by so quickly. And this is actually part 3, and I'd like to welcome JJ Roth with us today. It's been a while since we've had you.
I know.
I know, everybody gets excited when you're on.
Or opposite. They're like, oh man, he's back again.
If you haven't already, please hit the like button on our Facebook page, hit the like button on this video, and subscribe to us on YouTube because we love our subscribers.
We do. And I have to say, not very many people are hitting the like button, so they either really don't like it or they can't be bothered to hit the like button, but it means a lot to us. So if you could just try it out one time, maybe just try the like button, see how it works, you know?
Let us know online that you're watching, not just in person. I love hearing from all of you in person.
Exactly.
But we'd love to see it online too.
Gives us a little, warm fuzzy.
Boosts our confidence.
Exactly.
Because we're lacking that.
Because we're very lacking. Yeah. We both have serious self-esteem issues.
So maybe we should get on with it.
Okay.
So this is actually part 3 of our series on failure.
Yep.
We had talked about failure in life. We had how it's not really failure. Maybe it's learning experiences.
Maybe it's creating stepping stones.
And then we talked about how sometimes it feels like failure when a relationship ends too. Sometimes people feel like they hit this bottom of the well when they end a relationship and they feel like they're not the same person.
Their heart's been ripped out.
It's been broken and shattered. Will they ever be the same? And they are! If you're in that phase right now, it will get better. It does. Everybody goes through it. If you've been in at least 2 romantic relationships, you've probably been through a breakup.
You said that last week, and I'm like, wait,
hopefully.
What? So are you thinking one passes? Is that where the 2 comes in?
Hopefully you broke up with one before you started the second romantic relationship.
Oh, I get it. Okay. I missed that one. I thought you married the one and they passed, and now you're in never mind.
Unless you marry the first love that you have in your life.
That's what I thought.
Most people
have a lot.
There's a lot of fish in the sea, and most of them have to explore a lot of them before they find the partner that's right for them.
If you marry the first one you're with,
you don't know what's out there.
I can guarantee you, it's not right.
It's better to know what's out there.
It is.
And then find the mate that matches you. They might not be just the same as you. For some people, having a partner just like themselves works really, really well. For others, having somebody that's completely the opposite works pretty well too.
Because I'm messed up, and so I got somebody totally opposite.
And so it really helps. Figure out what works for you. Don't be afraid if you're in a relationship and you're not feeling like it's going anywhere and you're just biding time. Figure out what you want to do to make it worth your while in life. Maybe it's time to move on to something else and not waste their time, not waste your time.
Oh, that's it.
And find the right person.
Yeah, you date, test, move on.
There you go.
You started.
And eventually,
it's
a game of numbers.
It is.
So eventually you're going to find the right one.
Test it out. Even if they're great, but they're not the one. And then you move on.
At the same time, sometimes you're in a relationship with somebody and they mean a lot to you and it does feel like the right relationship, but you might just be fighting or going through a really bad spell or just not getting along and you're not sure what's not meshing. But it just feels like you keep having these different relationship failures. And what can you do? What are the signs? What are the things that show relationship failures? One of the things that I think a lot of people fail at in relationships is not fighting fairly. I think that can be a really huge thing. There needs to be some ground rules in a relationship so that, when you get into fights, don't do any name calling.
No.
Don't start.
The minute it reverts to any type of name calling, you're
out.
You're no longer progressing in any way. You're just throwing mud, and that never gains you traction or help or anything. And and this is the person you, in theory, are supposed to have a caring relationship about. So throwing mud is going to get you nowhere.
Right, and same thing with children too. You never want to.
Don't throw your children.
Yeah, don't do that either. But also, I was on the phone with somebody the other day, and I heard in the background someone else yelling at their little girl, calling them horrible names. And I wanted to kind of go through the phone, but I couldn't.
Of course.
But don't ever do that with your children.
No.
Fight fair with your children. You're their role model.
Yeah.
And the same thing in a relationship. Be the role model in your relationship. Be
Yeah.
the person that you want to be with while meeting the needs of your partner.
Yes.
And so fighting fair, also don't keep score. If you're keeping score of what they did right or what they did wrong, usually people keep score about what they did wrong.
Of course.
They don't keep
Yeah.
score often enough about what they did right.
You did something right before? Really? Oh yeah, I forgot to put that on the board.
Yeah. Keeping score is going to get you in so
Nowhere.
much trouble. It's just, it reiterates every time you have a fight, it reiterates the negative instead
Yeah.
of forgiving and letting go and
Yeah.
moving on.
Well, and you should be in the moment. You shouldn't be about, and that's the thing, you shouldn't be about who's more right. You should try to go for how can I be happiest.
That's the biggest key. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yep, exactly. And those usually you can't do both.
Exactly. Yeah, because if you're wanting to be right and that's what matters most, then you're wanting them to be wrong.
Well, and not only that, you start every conversation, every interaction out with the concept of how can I be more right than you? And that's
Yeah,
just, I
it's
mean,
a
you're
bad
asking for,
negative
you're just
spiral.
asking for a fight all the time.
Yeah, and then listening before you feel the need to be heard. That's another big key, is making sure that because this is somebody that you love, that you care about, you need to listen to them, even if inside you're thinking, I just really want to tell you what I feel, and I've got this bubbling up. Put that aside for a minute, kind of push it back into the back of your brain,
Yeah.
take a breath, and remember, this is somebody that I love. How can I hear what's going on with them? Because apparently we both have things going on, we both have some issues, and if you step up to the plate to listen first, and then repeat back to them that you hear what they're saying.
Yeah, to be heard is a huge deal.
It is.
Yeah, and so many people, that's what, especially like if you say something and in your mind there's no way you're wrong. You know what you've said is right. Then you're in a relationship with someone and they go, well, I'm not sure, which means right off the bat, you're pretty sure they're going to disagree with you. And because you know you're right, you're going to listen to it in terms of what can I use against them to prove
right.
that I'm right. That's what you're listening for.
That's not good.
And you're not listening for the context. So if you were to work at, and it's, and it's our
work.
brain, we are manually programmed, we are physically programmed to believe what we think is right. It's a physical, biological structure that's in our brain. We believe we are right. And so, I mean, you have to use the front part of your brain, the logical part of your brain to overwrite that and go, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to listen to what they say and first listen to the words and take it as I might be wrong. And if you take each conversation as I might be wrong, then when they're done, you're not like quick to go, no, you're so stupid. Oh my God.
Right. And that's where it also comes into key about repeating back to them what you heard before you move on to what your points are.
Yep.
Because that's also going to make it so you're sitting back in your head and you're hearing
You have to
what
hear
they're
them.
saying,
Yeah.
because you're not running on what you're going to say next. Instead, hear them, repeat it back to them, and then get your point across too.
Yeah.
See if it changes your point too, hearing their perspective. It seems like the vast majority of the time when I hear from people, and I can hear both sides from people, it's miscommunication. It's
Yeah.
not that they're even disagreeing really. So often it's miscommunication.
Yeah.
They're both wanting the same thing, or they're both kind of going in the same direction but in very different aspects.
Yeah.
And then they start just butting heads, and they want to get here, but they're kind of going at it.
Different ways. Yeah.
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 So learning to fight fairly, recognizing that if you're fighting with your loved one, that this is still somebody that you love, even if you're going through a rough moment with them.
Well, and everybody has emotional times where they get emotional about something, and the idea of coming back when you've overreacted. So we think of words as the way we communicate. Words to most people, especially in society as a general, we think words are how we communicate. But it is such a small portion of how we communicate, how we say those words. Like the commercial, I love the commercial where it's the insurance commercial where the girl got the couch and she's like, oh my God, I got this couch, and she's got the credit card, da da da, and then they play the exact same words with thieves standing in her front.
Oh my
in her
gosh,
front,
I love
and the
this
same
color
words.
in
Yeah.
this
So
couch.
so these words. So they play the words in two different contexts, and they mean completely different things.
Yes.
But they are the exact same words, and it's such a. It's I love that because that's true for people.
Yeah.
I mean, that is true.
Relationships,
Yep.
friendships, business dealings.
Yep. And so when you say something, when you're talking to someone, the words you say to them matter quite a bit less than the way you present them. And so if you say something, even if you're talking from an area of like what you feel about something or truth of something, and you're doing it in an angry manner, coming back and apologizing, maybe, I mean, even if, like I said, even if you're right in what you were saying, you don't have to apologize about what you said, but coming back and apologizing about the way you said it means that you're giving up that power in the sense of you realize that I could have done this better, I should have done this better because I care about you and I want to show you that, you know, I care about you enough to do that.
Yeah, we both have to do that at different points. We don't fight often, but
I do it more.
I
do.
you know.
But necessarily, it's not that she won't do it, I just need to do it more, so.
Not that we're keeping score.
No. So.
Oh, yes, so context absolutely is such a key. And just really knowing what their intent is. Your body language comes across a lot, and your volume of your voice.
80% of the way we communicate is through our
It's
body
body
and tone
language
and yeah.
Inflection, you know, if you're saying something in a certain tone of voice, it might be sounding totally different from the other words.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
really paying attention to that, reeling yourself back in if you're feeling like you're getting a little over the top, and remembering how are you going to feel the next day if you've gone over the top and then you have to apologize.
Yeah.
So try and reel yourself in a little sooner. If you don't, then just apologize the next day and mean it when you apologize. You
Well,
have to
that's
be
what- yeah.
sincere when you apologize.
Well, of course. Don't go back and just put gas on the fire. Sorry.
Integration is another thing too. Integrating with your partner. This is a different relationship failure. So some relationships failures are fighting not fairly. So
Yes.
another one is integration. Needing to.
Well, I've seen where people, they get into relationships where they think, I like this part of the person, but I don't like this part of what they do. And I will just not let that part be part of my life, and I will interact with them only on these levels. And the idea that you can do that to me is kind of insane. And on top of, and then to add to that, and then when you're in a relationship with somebody, taking the time to actually figure out how they are and the patterns they do, and try and make that work with your own patterns, you know, and
Which can be tricky sometimes.
Absolutely.
It
Yeah,
takes
yeah, yeah.
a lot of love and a lot of work.
yeah, and so that's what. But then there's so many people that they think that they can distance themselves in certain areas from other parts of who they're in a relationship with, and neither one that doesn't work. And then if you think we're just going to find a way to make it work, and it'll just happen, and it doesn't just happen.
Or they think, I can fix this part of them.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That doesn't work.
No, that doesn't work. Yeah.
Because you're with the person that you're with. And
Yeah.
so sometimes we will learn from each other with things, you know, you never know down the road if you might find that you pull out some strengths from what you thought you didn't like about that person in the beginning, that you might be pulling some strength out of that. And a lot of times we're seeing a mirror when we look at somebody. We've talked about that in other relationships. That also happens within romantic relationships. So if there are certain traits that just drive you crazy about your significant other, maybe you should look at why that triggers you, because those same traits probably don't trigger everybody else on the planet.
Right.
So why does that trigger you? Is that something that you're shying away from within your life? Is it something that is part of who you are and you haven't recognized that?
It's a direct correlation to you.
Or is it an experience you've had from before? A lot of times we bring certain baggage with us from past relationships or from our upbringing and things like that. So
Yeah.
figure out why it's triggering you, and don't expect that you can just fix it in the other person, but see if it's something that you can live with. If it's something that maybe you can see how actually that for them that kind of works. And so how can you integrate it with yourself? Maybe you can bridge a gap with that and figure out how you work well together by being opposite in certain ways. If it's not a mirror, it's really showing you what you're like
if it's not
yourself.
exactly you.
That's so often that's the
Yeah,
case, is it's
yeah.
really a mirror. And then always working on patience. So often in relationships, another failure that people have is they just don't have patience. They want to get their way, or they want their partner to be just the way they want them to be,
Yeah,
or
right.
they just lack patience.
Well, that's the thing, I think, because when people are at home, they spend the most time there. They spend so much time there with that person that the patience part, they get tired of trying or whatever. I don't know, but that is the most important relationship you have in your life, most likely, and on a day-to-day basis, moment to moment. And the idea that so many people, because, well, the human nature is to take for granted what we have all the time, but it needs to be, you need to work on having it be the most important thing that you're working on all the time.
Right, and I think a lot of people, when they go out in public, they feel like they put on a certain mask.
Yep.
And there's so many people that do that. And it takes
Yeah.
work to pull the mask off and just be
Yeah.
yourself all the time. And it's so relieving, so stress relieving to recognize that you can just be you, be happy
You don't
with
need to
who
be-
you are.
You don't need to be what you think everybody else should see.
But I think sometimes people, if they're wearing that mask out in public with people that they come in contact with, then they get home and they're tired
They're
because it's
exhausted,
exhausting to hold
emotionally
a mask
exhausted,
up.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know I used to when I was younger when we met.
When
I
we
used
first
to have
met.
a mask depending on who I was with.
Yeah.
I would vary how I was, and I learned a lot from you, even though I was leery of letting that go. And I had to discover who I was through that too,
Yeah.
because when you learn to let the mask go, you start learning what you really like, who you really are, what you really want, because you're not familiar with those if you have a mask.
If you
And
are
so
always wearing a
I
mask.
was shocked at
So-
how much more energy I had when I let
Yeah.
that go, and how
Yeah.
freeing that was. But for so many people that still have that mask, then if you're out with people and then that's so much work, and then you go home at the end of the day, you're ready to take it off, you don't care, and so then your significant other's coming home possibly in the same situation where they've taken their mask off,
Yeah.
they're tired,
Yeah.
and you end up butting heads because
'Cause
neither of you are
you're
happy at the end of the
exhausted. Well, you're
day.
exhausted. And it takes, to be patient with people, especially the ones that you're closest to be patient, it takes energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that you have to have, it's an emotional, it's like lifting weights for your muscles. If you don't lift weights normally, you can't go in and lift huge amounts of weights. You have to gain, you have to work at it. And emotional things like patience, and that all takes energy in the sense of that you can get stronger at it, or if you don't use it very much, you get weaker. Well, at the end of a day, if you've been flexing your emotional muscles trying to wear that mask all day, you're going to be exhausted.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people, there's this fairy tale idea out there that if you're in a relationship and you really love each other, everything's just gonna be fine and wonderful and perfect, and you'll go off and live happily ever after, and there's no work to it because it's your perfect match, and that's not the way it really is.
No.
It's work, it's every day, it's work, it's compromise,
Yeah.
and then there's such a rich reward out of that too, though. You can have the happily ever after. You can have a fantastic life and learn that you really work well together, and this
Yeah.
relationship will bring so much to you. But it is going to take work, so go into it knowing, because if you think it's not work, you're doomed for failure.
Oh,
So-
absolutely.
but it's worth the work, though,
It is,
too.
it is, it very much is. And the one thing I wanted to talk about, just hit me, and I want to throw this in, is that when we started all of this, the idea of failure. Failure, we have turned into this horrible concept. The term failure, we've turned it into, it's like an attack on a person. It's like an attack on
You
your,
failed.
yeah, like your ability to live well, to think, to do. It's an attack on a person, and all it means is something didn't work.
So you try again.
The definition is didn't work. Like, it breaks down to
And it's okay.
a situation that just didn't work. And so it's like pass, fail, yes, no, you know, I mean, to fail is just, it didn't work. And we've turned it into this emotional attack on people. And we really need to, you know, we really need to take that power back, because we give so much to the words we use with people, and failure is one of those ones that we use as a way of shaming somebody.
That's true.
And we really need to not, I think we really need to get away from that, and the idea that, I mean, failures are, I don't think anybody gets through a day without a single failure in one way or another.
Right.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's about, I love that you said claiming your power back, because that's really what it is. When you fail, you learn the most a lot of times. Those are the times that your eyes are opened and you can see so many things. If you look back at things that you feel like you failed at, look back at it, and instead of feeling bad about it, look back and think, okay, what did I learn? What can I change from that? And then how do you build those bricks? We talked in part one about how there were two different graphics, and there was one graphic where this guy had all of these bricks that said fail, and they were on his back and kind of crushing him as he hunched forward and was falling, collapsing under the weight of the failure. And there was a second picture that there was another guy that had those same number of bricks, and he was building stairs with them, and he was stepping up and walking across them, because he was using his failures as a platform to step up and build yourself from, because you can learn so much.
Because he was a bricklayer.
And how boring would life be if we succeeded at everything? We would never learn very much.
Well, yeah, and there would be no real point. I mean...
Right, because then you wouldn't treasure the fact of when it works, when the relationship is, you know, you're working together and you're making this happen, and it's, you know, you enjoy those great experiences even more, because you had some setbacks, you know how that felt, and now you have a comparison.
Well, and failures are work, and the only thing, I mean, we are programmed. The only thing we care about are things we have to work for.
That's true.
When things are when they just happen,
people don't appreciate it as much.
When you're, I mean, that's where people, that if you give somebody a car, they will beat the crap out of it. No matter how nice the car, no matter who the person is, they will beat the crap out of it. But if they have to work for that car, they have to work their butt off to keep that car, they will care.
Which with relationships kind of brings me to my next point too, of good questions to ask yourself. Are you somebody who is fun to come home to? Would you want to come home to yourself? Are you the type of person you would want to come home to and see?
Right.
And are you just fun to come home to? Would you want to be with yourself if you were your partner? Would you want to be with you?
Are you, when you step back, are you excited to see the person when they come home? Because if you are, then from the reverse,
they're seeing that excitement.
You would be excited to see yourself, kind of a thing. And that makes a huge difference.
And that's another great thing that people sometimes fail at in relationships, I think, is when their significant other comes home, they just, you know, oh, hi, you know, do this, whatever, you know, I'm busy, or, you know, all of these things. Instead, let your face light up when you see them. Give them a hug. Kiss them good night before bed. You know?
Oh, yeah, take the time.
Yeah, little appreciations.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, we program ourselves, and that's where if you do those things, you do those extra moments, you let those moments, you force those moments to happen, even if they're a forced moment to happen, they will stick with you, because we remember the stuff that happens that we have strong emotions with. And so if somebody comes home and they've been doing it for years, and you just, hey, how's it going? Hey, you're home.
You're losing that luster.
Yeah, then when you think of them, that's how you think of them. The last few times you've seen them, what was your emotional state when you saw them? And that eventually will become what you believe they are in your life.
And you can change that. You can create that by just tweaking your emotions, bringing it up, smiling. I was in a meeting with somebody recently at her house, and her partner came home, and as soon as her partner walked in the door, I saw her shoulders drop and her face lit up, and she gave her a hug, and it's like, and then we went back to our meeting. It's, you know, it's nice. It's a good feeling to do that. Which kind of brings us to the next point of thoughtful life patterns.
That's good.
So just learning to be thoughtful in life, being thoughtful about what your reactions are, kind of what we were talking about, I suppose, actually, just being thoughtful, thinking about how the other person sees you, thinking about how you can make their life better, just doing little things. If your partner travels, throw a note in their suitcase, you know, with maybe something that they like, or just little things.
It links with the integrating them into your life, being thoughtfully integrating them into your day-to-day routines.
Yeah, and if you feel like you're at this point in your relationship and you really love the person that you're with, but it just has been not working for a while, maybe you need to reintroduce yourself to that person too, and just, you know, act like you're starting over.
Yeah.
You can do this on a bigger scale if you've had a lot of problems, or if you just are having a day that's really bad. We learned that from someone here, that when they would have a day that was really bad, then they would just, you know, go outside the door again, come back in. Okay, let's start this
try
over.
this again. Yeah.
Let's, you know, we're home now. The rest of the outer world doesn't matter. What matters is what's going on within these walls, within the people that are here, which really brings me to my final point of being in the present moment. When you're in the present moment, and you realize that's the only moment that matters, you can release and let go of any other stress, anything that's gone on, any resentments or any problems from the past or any past relationship failures, you can let go of, because you're returning to the present moment. You're recognizing, you're seeing, this is somebody I love, this is somebody I'm excited to be with, and the present moment is what matters. Every day from here forward is going to be built off of this moment, and that can change within every moment.
Yep.
Any final thoughts?
No, I think you nailed it.
All right.
You did
Well, you too.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate that.
we love to hear comments from all of you out there online. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit the like button on our Facebook page. Hit the bell button on YouTube if you'd like to get all of the notifications, or just get some of the notifications. Certainly you can choose that. And share this video out with your friends and family. And we will see you next week.